Proportional Response. Book 1. Chapter 13, Part 4. Some Light Reading. Duke Fearadhach found himself shaking his head to try and clear it after the humans' announcement that they had found a potential ally in the ranks of the Zoltan military command structure. The surprises just keep on coming. Inibal told me dealing with the humans was like this. I think I see why this position wore on him so. I knew he was tougher than he himself realizes, but if this is as common as it seems, he is even less fragile than I thought.
Wait, we are sitting here calmly, talking about possibly having someone in the Zoltan ranks with enough power to lead an internal struggle when we haven't established that your species is safe, Henry. I am assuming, by the fact that you are sitting there so calm and collected, that it is, but...
Henry folded his hands on his desk and gave him a toothy grin.
Ambassador Wendy sent a number of heavily encrypted messages from her personal transport the moment she was back aboard it. I don't think we have anything to worry about from her.
Well then, on to the obvious question.
Okay, then I will bite, as you humans say. Where does that phrase of yours come from anyway? Never mind, answer that later. The pertinent question. Who is the Altan you have found within their ranks to lead an effective resistance against the Zoltan voters?
Henry smiled and handed out a pad.
You have no doubt seen this list floating around on the internet the last few weeks. What?
Caslaw smiled as he read. He had seen the lists before, of course, and assumed that they were some more of the covert propaganda put out by the humans. He'd found the part about prisoners particularly amusing. I am not a human. This isn't some piece written by the humans to try to change what you will do. I will not reveal my race, and there is a reason I wrote this thing in several different languages. I will not reveal whether my own language is in here anywhere, so you can query your translator all you want for clues, and it won't help you. That said, so your glorious leaders have gone and done it. They've bowed to pressure and declared war on the humans, and you, unfortunate soldier, are stuck having to face them in battle. Here are the things you need to know, as a commander or rank and file, to stand a better chance of getting out of this alive. 1. Understand that your side is going to lose. 2. Always accept surrender. If you somehow manage to fight them to a standstill, regardless of what your command says. 2b. Understand that human prisoners are never safe. 2c. Do not mistreat human prisoners. 2d. If you can get away with it, just let them go. 2e. If you let them go, do not, under any circumstances, provide them with anything other than basic clothing and food, particularly weapons, or anything that could be used for a weapon. This includes cutlery. No, not even a spoon. No, not even a plastic spoon. 3. If you can see you are going to lose, surrender. 4. If you are going to lose and can't surrender, flee as quickly as you can. Officers be damned. The humans know who to target to get your fellows to stop fighting, and the officer refusing to surrender probably won't be around to report you, one way or the other. 5. Know that their officers are there to hold them back, not to push them to fight you. That means, really, that their officers are there to protect you. Don't target their officers. You won't live to brag about it if you succeed. 6a. Do not kill civilians. Remember, the Zoltans killed a few handfuls of their civilians, and they responded by annexing entire planet. 6b. Understand that their rank and file will not show as much restraint as their governments did if you violate this rule. 6c. Understand their definition of civilian. 7. Do not mistreat civilian prisoners. 8. If you are dug in and losing but can't surrender for some reason, and have wounded who are dying, request a ceasefire to evacuate your wounded. The humans will probably take them as prisoners, but they will work as hard to keep them alive as they do for their own. 9. Learn the human concept of a war crime. 10. If ordered to commit a war crime by your leaders, don't. See rule number 1. Defect or desert if you have to. If you can find a way, contact the humans covertly and ask for help. They may allow you to defect, or take you prisoner, or come up with a creative solution to keep you out of trouble. Kazler looked up from the list and quirked a single eyebrow at Henry.
You mean to tell me that this wasn't the work of your psychological operations division?
Henry's smile broadened.
Nope. They had something similar they were considering, but were still dickering over the wording and numbering having to do with civilians when this one hit the nets. You have noted that the thing was posted as a picture rather than text, right? Basic trick for someone who has made the thing and doesn't want variations of it all over the net. Well, this picture had some very interesting stuff hidden in it. I won't bore you with the analysis, but there is a cipher encoded into the picture which resolves to a Zoltan military document code, and that code points to a document whose author we have been trying to find for quite some time. The document in question is the next one in your pad, a Sultan report on some mock battle exercises we held with them during the time when we were negotiating to join the League. Go ahead and read our wait.
Henry then turned to his screens and left them to read. Kazler thumbed past the intro with the names of the various generals who authored the report, though one thing did catch his eye. The report had been prepared, Zoltan military speak for the person who did the work, by Major Strasser Mendes. Normally, an enlisted secretary would be the preparer. Also, he couldn't help but think he'd heard the name before. It is the conclusion of High Lord General Vendish and his staff that the humans pose no significant threat to the mighty Zoltan military. For all their centuries spent scrabbling in the dirt against one another and their physical capabilities, they seem to lack even the most basic understanding of proper military tactics and the strong chain of command required to win large-scale engagements. Their ranking officers have minimal control of their subordinates, and their enlisted personnel will operate without orders, even in contradiction of orders, and go off-book during the course of engagements. General Vendish was sufficiently disgusted by the uncouth, undisciplined, uncivilized, and idiotic behavior of the humans that he has washed his claws of all matters concerning the humans, and delegated that I, under General Menons, dictate this report. I shall endeavor to explain the foibles of the humans by giving examples of their lack of capability and understanding as detailed below. The mock engagement exercises were set up with a standard 2-army battlefield. Command tents were placed 2 miles apart, with a gentle sloped valley between them and berms dug or built up on the battlefield to provide soldiers with cover. Both sides used mock-ups of their own weapons, with computers tracking the shots of the soldiers and providing holographic representations of the weapon's action when needed. The first scenario pitted the human army against the Zoltan army. Things started out smoothly enough. After the starting horn sounded, it barely took half an hour for our generals to coordinate a detailed series of troop movements, guaranteed to disrupt the plans of our human opponents. We pushed our orders to their subordinates in record time. All orders went down through the ranks with the speed and efficiency which only the glorious Zoltan military can achieve. It only took an hour for the battle plan to be disseminated to every soldier. Once they all knew their individual maneuvers and timing, we took to the battlefield and, for a moment, thought that we might be in trouble. The human army stood at the opposite end of the field, giving every appearance of having taken the field some time ago. They had not started their own maneuvers, however, but stood milling around uncertainly. It was with laughter at their unwillingness to engage us that we signaled our troops to begin. The Zoltan soldiers performed their maneuvers well, and with precision, responding without hesitation to the orders of their superiors as changes in the plan were handed down. Sadly, our well-timed and precise movements were lost in the chaos that is humans. We overestimated human command and control, and mistook their chaotic lack of proper tactics for patterns we could not discern, and many of the orders given to the troops to provide corrections to their movements left them exposed to enemy fire, which led to a loss of the first engagement. The second engagement fared little better, despite our better preparation. We refrained from giving our subordinates too many orders, but someone on the human side was able to discern too much in the way of our strategy, and, to put it simply, the humans were able to bring off a technical victory, despite the lack of any apparent planning or coordination on their side. The following 3 engagements proceeded in much the same fashion, and the Lord General grew increasingly, and quite justifiably, disgusted with each human victory. He and several other members of the General's staff reminded the humans repeatedly that their lack of proper tactics and discipline might work in the limited engagements of our simulations, but would surely spell doom on a real battlefield. The humans nodded and changed nothing about their behavior, even when the Lord General accused them of trying to make a mockery of the entire exercise. The next day, the human leader suggested a change in the spirit of cooperation. Joint exercises with the 2 armies composed of equal mixes of humans and Zoltans. We were, of course, scornful of the idea, but the humans insisted, and we finally decided that we might be able to gather insights on how to more easily defeat them later, as if such would be needed of the ever-victorious Sultan army. I was chosen to lead one of the armies, and the Lord General took the other. They paired the humans leader with me, and his first subordinate with the Lord General. I began to have trouble with the human general almost immediately, when the horn sounded my staff, and I began to lay out a series of movements for the Zoltan and human troops. The human general made a few strange, nonsensical suggestions about areas of responsibility and fields of fire. He was quickly convinced that he needed to watch and learn. As is proper with a new subordinate, I watched the human brief his subordinates. It took some correction to get the human to properly impress all of the maneuvers on his subordinates, but they eventually began to roll their eyes in what appears to be the human gesture for understanding. I and my officers followed the humans after we finished pushing orders to our subordinates, and it was a good thing we did. The orders kept getting mangled or abbreviated as they went down the line, and it took some correction to make sure that all of the timing and movement orders had been conveyed to each soldier and he understood exactly what he was supposed to do. It was apparent that the lower ranks, at least, appreciated being given proper instruction, probably for the first time in their military careers, because they mostly bore smiles as they rolled their eyes to indicate understanding. At length we took to the field. I feared that we would find our opponents already had control of the battle, but we actually managed to be on the field first by almost 5 minutes. The Lord General later informed me this was because I lacked the patience to make sure that the orders had been properly relayed by making the humans repeat them back. As it turned out, even humans appreciative of receiving proper orders don't follow them very well. It was only a few minutes before our carefully timed movements were wrecked by humans who seemed to be everywhere except where they were supposed to be. The video attached to this post can reveal the shambles which occurred, so I will not attempt to have it all transcribed. My team won that bout, in the end, mostly because some of the humans managed to get lucky and intercept the bulk of the Lord General's exultant force at the point just before they gathered for the standard final push. The Lord General was, of course, furious with the humans, his and mine, for failing to follow proper battle order. He was more angry with his own, of course, since their being out of position left his force push vulnerable.